WP eSignature. Who's heard of Approve Me? Or WP eSignature, or DocuSign, or any of the number of other products that kind of work in the space. My name is Greg Madore. I was approached by Greg Douglas and Kevin, who's the CEO of Approve Me, and he wanted to talk with you guys, and he asked me if I'd be willing to give kind of a demo presentation about some of the capabilities of WP eSignature. So that's the website there. If anybody's interested or has questions for Kevin, I have his email address. I'm sure he'd like to hear you. He's very forthcoming. He comes to meetups. And so my name is, has everybody, who's been here before? Okay, so most folks. So you guys recognize me from lurking around. It's been a while since I've been giving a presentation, but I'm getting back on the horse, so I hope to have some good information for you guys here. My name is Gregory Madore. I've got my Twitter stuff. I've got an email address there. That's me. So I own a small business. Like I think pretty much everybody here in one way, shape, or form. We're all kind of business owners. I started my consulting business in 2007. I worked for Apple for 2 years as a Mac genius. I kind of struck out on my own. I wanted to make recommendations kind of based on my experience, not based on what was being sold in the stores. So I'm sure everybody here has a story about either going to the Apple store or the Microsoft store, and while the recommendations are usually pretty solid, it might not be the best recommendation. So that's what I really wanted to do, is based on 10 years of troubleshooting experience, I wanted to make the recommendations I wanted to make. Okay. I discovered WordPress in 2009, so I'm kind of a WordPress late bloomer, I think. Roy, what version did you start with? 0.7 in 2000. Yeah. So we've got some folks here that are really good assets. If you're looking for anything to do with WordPress, I think Roy could take it apart and put it back together again 6 different ways. I'm making my steps on my journey there. So a developer friend of mine did a project that we were working on in WordPress. I got in there and I looked at it and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. And I started using it for other projects we were working on. So as a small business owner, we all wear a lot of hats. It's a pretty common metaphor that a lot of us use, whether it's CEO or CFO or janitor or, food services or, whatever we need to do to get the job done. I think we pretty much do. I have a new hat that I'm announcing to kind of the group in general here. It's kind of an important hat. My wife and I are expecting our first baby in April. So this is kind of a new step for us, and this is their first portrait. So I guess, why am I telling you this? Because now, aside from the house and the company and the work that I do and protecting all of my customers' assets and their businesses, now I'm also really concerned with protecting mine and my wife and our new, what I affectionately refer to as our parasite. So contracts and kind of contracts in general really protect everyone. It shouldn't just be something you're doing for you. It's something for you, but also for your customers. It's to protect everybody involved in a project so that everybody kind of knows the baseline where everybody's working from, and everybody kind of agrees on that. Having those good contracts and managing them in an efficient manner and being able to, nothing is probably more frustrating to a customer than, yeah, I'll get you that contract, and 2 weeks later you still haven't sent it to them, and that's not efficient for them, it's not efficient for you. If you have a way of organizing those contracts, delivering them in an efficient manner, and both for you and for them, this is something that is really helpful to everyone. So options. So we've talked about DocuSign, we've talked about a number of the different offerings. There's tons of them out there. They have a lot of really great things about them. The heavy hitters, DocuSign, Adobe, the platforms that they have and the way that the applications work is really slick. And they make it pretty easy to get a contract out to a customer. So why not use them? I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of feeling like I'm getting killed by paper cuts here with the monthly payments for every single thing that whether it's Office 365 or Creative Cloud or whatever it is, I'm getting hit left and right, and my monthly expenses have gone progressively up as a result of it. So these things that require more monthly payments for software as a service, while if it's a great product and it's the only offering, okay, fine. Microsoft Office, I need. So I pay for Office 365. Adobe Photoshop, I need it, so I pay for it. But if there's a solution out there that really does kind of fit in that space and take care of some of this stuff, and more importantly, lets my customers stay on my site instead of having to have them create an account on another site and go through needing another password or, redirecting them to some other place, I'd rather keep them in my world rather than sending them off to somewhere else. So this is the product by ApproveMe. It's called WP eSignature. And, from a nuts and bolts standpoint, no monthly payments. Check. No real heavy coding required. There are some things that if you know a little bit of programming, you can certainly make your contracts look a little bit snazzier. But we're going to show you, not everything, but we're going to show you kind of 2 examples of what you can do with this product. To get pretty much what most people, I think, would need. Your customers stay on your website. They stay with your SSL certificate. They stay, and who's here is not familiar with what an SSL certificate is? Okay, good. An SSL certificate? Okay, good. Get one. If you're going to do this, you need one. There's a little check mark as part of the umbrella of settings that just says Force SSL. It's one check and it's done for you. No coding, no HT access, no nothing. You can actually integrate this with PayPal, FreshBooks, Dropbox. You can even connect it up with Adobe. There's a lot of things that ApproveMe is actually doing to make this an integratable, if that's even a word, platform. And there's add-ons, and they're great. We'll talk more about some of the add-ons, but no. Adobe allows you to work with specifically the PDF format. I mentioned Adobe. You can actually output PDFs that can be sent automatically for you. So most importantly, we have compliance. Who here remembers Flight of the Navigator? Flight of the Navigator? It's like an 80s movie with this little spaceship that takes orders from this kid and it says compliance, and that's when it gets its acceptance. I had a phone ringtone for that for a while. Yeah, I'm that much of a geek. So compliance. ApproveMe actually meets the major compliance requirements for both Europe as well as the US. So it's important to have that safeguard, and they're maintaining it. So it's a plugin that they'll maintain and update. It's not custom code that you have to pay a developer to do. There's a whole company that's working to maintain it, and if you have support problems, they have support technicians that can help you with it. So questions to this point? This is kind of the general overview type stuff.
You mentioned that it was a single payment, it wasn't monthly payments. How long does that cover updates to?
Annually. Yes. Okay. So it's still a little bit of a paper cut, but it's not quite so regular. So we'll get to pricing. So installation and setup is fairly straightforward. It's not something you find in the repo. You actually have to go to their website. You pay your annual payment, and then you go to your My Downloads history. The nice thing is they manage your license, so if you ever lose the email that they send to you, or if you run into problems, you can just go back and re-download it. Click the download file. Anybody who's done WordPress before, this is pretty familiar. And then once it installs, it basically has 2 tabs, My Documents and Settings. At that point, it's going to ask you for name information, and this is the name and email address that requests and invites to sign contracts are going to come from. So you can make this your company name. You can make it whatever you want it to be. It's not tied to a user account. There is a spot where you can tie it, that the super admin is what governs who can do different roles and things like that, and that's one user at a time. So there is a plugin for multiple roles, and haven't quite gotten too far into that just yet, but and you can identify your eSignature page. Okay, so, and here's that, before I trip on my laptop, one check mark for SSL security. So as long as your site has an SSL cert, check, and we're done. So you hit Save Settings. Advanced email settings. Do this. I was working locally, and we ran into a problem where it didn't like the port forwarding on my home network connection. So with the advanced email settings, you can actually specify outgoing mail settings, particular hosts, SSL settings, and this is all within the plugin itself. This is completely separate from WordPress. You can have, WP SMT mail if you wanted to do that, but this is its own thing, okay? Usernames, passwords. So let's create a basic contract. I found a little form, kind of basic sort of contract like we all do fairly regularly on the web. It looks something like this. It's just a boilerplate sort of thing. I put into little brackets kind of customer's name and a couple of other points. But even if you don't want to do any programming whatsoever, you could take something like this and just have it in a document, copy it, paste it into your actual document that you're creating in WP eSignature, go in there and change the customer's name, change the pricing, change the, and then you could send that out if you wanted to. To create that new contract, we just go into the back end, click Add New Doc. In this case, because it's just a bare bones installation of the plugin, the only option we have is basic. There's other types with add-ons that you can do, and we'll cover one additional of those tonight. You identify who you want to send this contract to. That's an important part of this transaction. And then you paste in your content right in the interface that we're all familiar with using. Again, if you know a little bit of code, headings, you can do some fancy stuff in here, which, I did very limited stuff. I created some headings tags just to make it a little bit bolder, just to separate the sections out, make it easier to read on the TV. And you can see here, I've got customer's name identified by these brackets. And if I wanted to, I could go and change that. For the sake of our conversation here, if I click Send Document, the end user gets an email. It's a big button that says Review and Sign. Okay, pardon that extra little. I also can get that. Okay, so if we're both signing it, we both get the email at the same time. Okay, so with the basic plugin, with the basic sort of document, however many people you put in that list, they all get it at the same time. So you would want to pre-enter the data if you were just using the basic plugin for your contract. And this is what the site looks like. You can, again, with additional add-ons, you can customize the look and the feel. You can add your logos. You can style it and personalize it the way you would want it to be. I've changed, so you can see John Doe that's there. I've added him just by hard coding him into that actual document. And then when you scroll down, it's pretty much what we're familiar with. You click the sign here. You can sign it on your iOS device, on your Android device, or if you're good with a mouse, you can sign it right here. Or you can type in the signature if you prefer to do that. If you are doing that, it does ask you to, in legalese, confirm that I accept that this is my digital signature, and that's all part of that compliance stuff. So once you accept your chicken scratch, you can hit Insert Signature, and it shows up, just like you would expect it to. So once you've filled out all the things, in this case, it's just your signature. Once you fill that out, it prompts you to agree and sign below, I am John Doe. If you can't read that, it says, I am John Doe, and I agree to be legally bound by this agreement and eSignature terms of use. Okay, click Agree and Sign. It says you're done signing. Thank you, UI feedback. I love you. And then it gives, if you want to have the user print the document at this point, they can absolutely do that. Or when you finish signing the document, my inbox, as the person who sent the contract, lights up, and I get an email saying that the contract was signed. The person who signed it gets an email that the contract was signed, and keep those emails around. You can view the signed document. You can print it at that point. But all of this, while great, seems kind of like a lot of work to have to go in there and change the fields and have to monkey around with a different contract every single time. So, who remembers the Animaniacs? Love the Animaniacs. We're not going to talk about a nurse here tonight. We are going to talk about add-ons. So, with the add-ons, it lets you extend out what WP eSignature can do. And there are quite a few of them. These are the ones that Approve Me has created, and I know you probably can't read that. But WP eSignature signer input fields, URL redirects after you sign the contract, you can have them go back to a certain page. Auto add my signature, so if you have a contract that's already out there and you know it's good and you know it's not going to change, it can auto add your signature so that part's done. Assign signer order is going to be really important, so you can actually assign who has to actually fill in given fields as you work through the contract process. And you can even do a WordPress user registration. If you wanted to actually do a membership site that has a contract component to it, you can pass that along to your membership. So we're going to do the next part of this, which is to try to streamline some of these things. So let me back off here. So we're going to enable 3 plugins. Signer input fields, document templates, and assign signer order. Sorry about that little skip there. So when we enable the document template add-on, we get this second option for templates. Okay, so we're going to click that template option. And then it presents us with a very important question, which is, what are we trying to do here? I love their interface. It's very straightforward. It's very linear. It takes a little bit of getting used to figuring out how things link together on the back end. But the actual user front end, once you set up your contracts, very straightforward. So we can create a template or we can use an existing template. We're going to actually create a template, and it asks, how many signers are we dealing with here? So in our case, for most of us, it's probably a 2-person sort of deal. You're assigning values for prices, for deposits, for scheduled dates. We're going to look at a couple of these in a few brief moments. But for the most part, it's going to be 2 people. So you can copy and paste that same basic example that I used a few moments ago, just as a starting point. But instead of leaving this customer's name or changing it to John Doe manually, when you insert the signer field add-on, it gives you the option for signer field. And when you click on that, you've got text boxes, paragraphs, date calendars. It'll automatically fill the signed-on date. You can upload a file as part of a contract. If there's a certain submission that they need to do as part of your contract, you got it. And this is all built right into the plugin. So in our case, I'm going to choose Insert Text Box because we're replacing that customer name option. And this is where the magic starts happening. So who fills out this form field? Signer 1 or Signer 2? Linearly, for most of these contract fields, I would want Signer 1 to fill out most of these items. Okay? Leave it as, oh, that's okay. We'll pick it up shortly. So I've found that the fewer things that my customer has to fill out, the better. They'll do it faster. We'll be able to get to work faster. So I try to have initials in certain highlighted points dealing with money, dealing with legal restrictions, dealing with browser types where I actually want them to focus on it and read it. I'll put a little initial box there. But for the most part, I'm the one that's going to fill in most of these fields. So I go through and I change customer's name to customer's name, make it a required field for Signer 1 to fill out. Click the Insert Text field. Signer 2, initials. That's where they would be coming in, entering their little initials. And we have all sorts of other options. If you couldn't see those lists earlier, that's the 8 different options that we have. Okay, so now what? These actually fill in shortcodes within the actual text editor that have different arguments like field label and who's responsible, and it creates these shortcodes for you automatically. Okay? So once you create your template with all your form fields, underneath the new templates option list here, so you'll notice this little guy gets created, there is a very simple link that says Add Document. You click that Add Document, and again it asks, what are we trying to do? We're trying to create a new basic document based on that template that we just created. So select those options, click Next Step, and then it asks, okay, instead of a question as to how many signers we have, it says, okay, who needs to sign it? This is where we identify signer 1, signer 2. So signer 1, I'm going to fill in as moi, okay? And then John Doe, my friend John, we fill in as signer 2. And right here you can add additional signatures if we needed to, but in this case let's keep it simple. We click our Insert Template, and it creates our template. Okay? Now, best practices says have some kind of a job number, some type of internal ticket tracking system, something that creates some kind of a number for you so that you can put a number in your document name. So in this case, job number 15-0010, Los Angeles WordPress Meetup site. Great. And that's really all you have to do. All the other shortcodes you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but there's shortcodes there that say, you know, signature field, size, undefined. You can actually set widths for things. So when you're doing initials, you can kind of shrink that box down. And then down at the bottom, there's a couple of important things we need to do. We need to make sure that we check the little box that says Assign Signer Order, so that it doesn't get blasted to both people at the same time, because we have to fill out our part before them. Okay? And we can, if you are dealing with a contract that has 4 or 5 people, you can actually check a little box that says notify me when a signature is added. Okay? So you can kind of keep track of it as it moves through. Then we click Send Document. So let's go live. So if I bring up, hang on, there we go. Okay, so here's my template that I was just talking about. We can preview that document if we want to. This is what it looks like. I've got customer name, price of the contract, just some scope type things, live period, start date. Checkboxes if you want to identify the specific things that you're going to be looking to actually do for this person. Browser compatibility statements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I can provide this file if you guys want to take a look at it and take it apart. Just let me know on the Meetup or send me a message. I'm happy to do so. And then the signature lines. Very important thing with WP eSignature. It maintains an audit trail for this specific document. Okay? So as people sign it, it creates a new line item, the date, the time, when it happened, so that if there's ever, and we don't want to be in court, folks, we've got better things to do, but just in case you should need it, it's got a particular ID in your system, and you can reference that. So I'm going to go back here to my document, and I'm going to click Add Document, just like we just talked about. I'm going to select the basic document option. I'm going to select the template example. I'm going to say Next Step. We've got our users. John. Great. I hope I spelled all that right. We click Insert Template. Okay. We do our job number. Great. Scroll down to the bottom, make sure our checkbox is checked for assign signer order, and we click send document. It thinks for a few brief seconds. As long as the hamsters are running through the internet correctly, we should be in business. And in my email now, if I can find my cursor, this way. There we go. And this way. Please pardon all my gibberishy emails. We have our email. So now I can review and sign this, and I can say, this is between John Doe and myself. Price, this is a good site. I want to pay attention. So we can pick dates for the start and the end. If the site, say it's for a sweepstakes or for some purpose that has an actual lifespan, you can specify that. We're going to do project management, we're going to do transfer to production, etc., etc. You can input, say we want to talk with Jane Doe regarding the project management elements of things. Great. Deposit fee, 50% down, so 50,000. And you can see that it actually identifies the elements that you can't do. It's not going to let you fill those in, which I found to be a nice feature, so you don't accidentally fill something in. Remainders, and then we've got my signature field. Oh, I missed something. Okay. So we're going to do 100 an hour for copy editing and 100 an hour for text. Now we can sign it. Because I don't want to look like a complete fool, I'm just going to let the type work. So there is our signature. And of course, the one time I do this live, it's not going to let me do it. Hang on for just a second here, folks. G, see why I didn't want to do that? There we go. So agree and sign. And then it says, okay, great. It sends that now on to John. That little ding means John got the email. Now I can review and sign that on behalf of John. And everything that I just put in there is all filled in. The only thing he has to do is come down here, initial our deposits, JD, 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 sign it himself, adopt and sign, agree and sign, done. Okay? It's about a 5-step process to send out a contract. It's automated through those templates, and it makes it much, much easier to not have to go to a PDF, email a PDF, etc. Okay. Back to any questions about this? Pretty straightforward. Yes, ma'am.
So, do you is there a price for this or for any add-ons? Okay.
The big question. So what does it cost? $97 for the basic annually, $197 for the full Megillah kit and caboodle, where everything is there. Both versions have the compliance built in. It's just the advanced add-ons. Okay? So what are the advanced add-ons? I try to guess what your questions are going to be before you ask them. Basic add-ons are the custom signer fields, the document activity notifications, and the save as PDF. I thought the save as PDF as being part of the basic was awesome. Okay? And then the advanced, the document templates, the Dropbox sync, etc., etc. So, questions? Ma'am?
Can you buy the premium add-ons one at a time, or do you have to get the
Whole kit and caboodle. Yep, basic or advanced. So far as I can tell. Maybe Kevin will have a deal for you, but I'll have to ask him directly. Other questions? Hey, Brandon. Didn't see you sneak in. Other questions? I covered it all. There's a lot more that it can do. I covered basically 4 of the 13 add-ons. I didn't want to go too deep into it, but Glenn.
How much are they charging for basic cert?
Basic what?
Certificate.
An SSL cert?
Yeah.
They don't, that's not what ApproveMe does.
So how much is that going for?
$50. Yeah, you can get a Komodo.
It's an add-on to your hosting.
Yeah, it's usually whatever, Media Temple, I'm sure, has a relationship with SSL certificates. I've never done it through Media Temple, but they all, you call them up, I need an SSL cert, you pay them, they'll install.
Sometimes they even do it for free for a year or something.
Sometimes, yeah, depending. Okay, so if anybody has any questions about this stuff, I'm here. I'm going to be getting connected with our gentleman that's going to be talking after our little break here. Ani is here. Susanna's here. Ilya is not here, so far as I can tell. But if anybody needs to get in touch with him, I'm sure we can find him. So grab some water. We've got plenty of food left. I'm going to get hooked up with New York. And if anybody has any questions for me, I'll be up here. Okay? Thank you, guys.